Through the half-open door of the private room, I could hear my girlfriend, Chloe, and her group of socialite friends laughing loudly. After they settled down a bit, one of them asked her, "Chloe, if you do this, won't Mark try to kill you when he finds out?" That was a C-suite job, worth $500,000 a year. For a scholarship kid from a small town, getting that far couldn't have been easy. "Yeah, really," another chimed in. "Didn't you say he'd been preparing for that jump for ages? What if he finds out and loses it on you?" Chloe just laughed. "Lose it? Please! Mark is my little lapdog. I could slap him silly and he'd still come back wagging his tail for me. Besides, who told him to prepare for an interview without telling me? This is his punishment. We agreed from the start that we wouldn't have any secrets from each other. He broke the rules, so he has to learn his lesson." True. Men need to be trained. You've really got it down, Chloe. One anonymous tip, and his career aspirations went up in smoke. If a man gets too successful, his ego gets wild and he won't behave. For families like ours, we don't need a husband who's a captain of industry. One who's obedient like a dog is best. The women burst into another round of laughter, and I just stood there outside the door, feeling cold. I never would have imagined it. The person who had sabotaged me, who made me lose the job I'd dreamed of, was the girlfriend I loved with all my heart. 6 months ago, a good friend of mine, Alex, reached out to me. He was a partner at a headhunting firm and had an opportunity he wanted to run by me. The CEO of a major subsidiary of X Group, one of the top 3 firms in the industry, had annoyed someone on the board of directors. The top brass wanted to push out the current CEO and replace him with someone more of a team player, but the idea hadn't trickled down to HR yet. Alex just so happened to have had dinner with the chairman, so he caught wind of it before anyone in the company's own HR department. He recommended me on the spot. He felt that out of everyone he knew, my qualifications and experience were a perfect match for the role. More importantly, my easygoing personality was exactly the kind of team player attitude the board was looking for. The chairman, Mr. Harrison, was kind enough to give my friend the courtesy. He quickly found some time for Alex to arrange a dinner for the 3 of us. It was just a casual meet and greet, a chance to feel each other out. I must have made a good impression at that dinner. Mr. Harrison was very pleased with me. The current CEO hadn't been fired yet, but the chairman hinted that it would happen within the next 6 months. He told me to get ready, and once the position officially opened, I'd just have to go through the standard interview process. So I spent a long time preparing for that offer. I wanted to make sure there wasn't a single hiccup in the process. A few months later, just as predicted, the CEO was let go. The job opening was sent to internal HR. With the inside track from the chairman and Alex, my resume sailed through the initial screenings. In the final round, the top executives were all impressed with me. Landing the offer was supposed to be a sure thing. I never expected to hit a snag right at the finish line. Alex called me, clearly worried. Someone had sent an anonymous complaint to X Group's headquarters. It claimed that in my previous role, I had engaged in a lot of non-compliant practices to boost business. The letter contained no evidence, only accusations. But considering the potential risk, the executives at X Group became very hesitant about hiring me. They debated it internally for 2 weeks, and the final verdict was to play it safe and pass. My offer was gone. He asked if I'd told anyone I was planning to leave my job, thinking someone got jealous and decided to sabotage me. Hearing the news was a shock. I was completely floored. After all these years in the workforce, I knew the golden rule. You don't say a word to anyone until the offer is signed. I hadn't breathed a word of this to a single soul. I racked my brain but couldn't figure out where I'd slipped up. Alex felt terrible for me. He suspected I'd made an enemy and suggested I figure out who it was. Otherwise, this person would just keep ruining any future opportunities that came my way. Losing such a great opportunity was a huge blow. I was depressed for days. But he was right. I had to find the person who had screwed me over. I'd been at my old company for over a decade. I started as a management trainee and fought my way up to become the head of my business division. All of my previous bosses had given me excellent reviews. The team I managed was a well-oiled machine, and they all trusted and respected me. I honestly couldn't think of anyone who'd be bored enough to track my every move. If I had to stretch for a suspect, the only person I'd had any conflict with was the new CEO they'd recently brought in. He wanted to pivot the business, but his new direction clashed directly with the division I was in charge of. We'd argued about it several times in strategy meetings, and it was clear the CEO was not happy with me. That was actually what made me start thinking about leaving in the first place. After thinking it through, he was the only one who seemed remotely plausible. So I started being more careful at work, trying to avoid any more conflict with him. However, less than 2 weeks after the anonymous tip incident, I was called in for a meeting with the CHO. And just like that, I was asked to resign. My suspicions boiled over. I couldn't stop myself from going to the CEO's office and getting into a huge shouting match with him. I ruined my relationship with that company completely. There was no going back to my old company. If losing the X Group offer was just a disappointment, a missed opportunity, then getting forced out of my old job was a huge blow to my career. My position was quite senior, after all. After leaving my company, I couldn't immediately find a suitable role or platform. So, for the time being, I was unemployed. But I was used to being busy, and I was at the peak of my career. Suddenly having nothing to do felt completely wrong. On top of that, none of the job opportunities I saw met my expectations. As the days stretched into weeks, I grew noticeably more anxious. Back then, my girlfriend, Chloe, would comfort me. She'd say, "It's okay, Mark. Even if you don't work so hard, I can support you. Don't stress yourself out. Take your time finding a job. We're not in a hurry. If it comes to it, I can have my dad arrange something for you." But the whole reason I was working so hard and planning my career so meticulously was to be good enough for Chloe. How could I ever rely on her family? My girlfriend, Chloe, her father was in real estate with Sinclair Holdings, her uncle in mining with Bedrock Industries. Her family wasn't just wealthy. They were loaded. And I was just an ordinary guy from a small town. Chloe was under a lot of pressure for being with me. She always said her family didn't care about that stuff, that as long as I was a decent person, her parents wouldn't object. But the gap between us was just too vast. I worked my ass off to become the head of my division in 5 years, pulling in over $300,000 a year, just barely making it into the upper middle class. Only then did I feel like I could barely stand by her side. But I never, ever would have thought that while I was busting my ass to climb higher and get one step closer to her, she would be the one pulling the ladder out from under me. And I certainly never imagined that while I thought we were soulmates, lovers who understood each other on the deepest level, she was behind my back laughing about me with her friends, treating me like a joke, like her dog. In the private room, the laughter continued. But Chloe, sabotaging his offer is one thing. Secretly sending an anonymous email to his boss, saying he was looking for another job, getting him fired from his current one, isn't that a little messed up? Chloe pouted. Well, I didn't think his boss would actually fire him. But it's better that he lost that job anyway. That stupid job of his. After taxes, he was only making a little over $100,000. Even with bonuses and profit sharing, he barely broke $300. That's not even enough for me to buy a few handbags. Low pay is one thing, but it was so demanding. He was always traveling for work and never had time for me. Now that he's unemployed, he has time to pick me up, time to go on dates with me. This is what a boyfriend is supposed to be like. So, with no job, you're just going to let him mooch off you? Her friend pressed. Chloe pursed her lips. No way. My dad worked hard for his money. Why should I spend it on some guy? When I said I'd support him, I was just saying it to make him feel better. Mark is capable. It's not like he can't find another job. Later on, he can just find something that pays well and isn't too demanding. Hearing that, I didn't even know how to describe what I was feeling. So while she was comforting me to my face, she was laughing at me behind my back. She didn't even think it was a big deal. What if he can't find one? He's not getting any younger. He's in his 30s. In a few more years, he'll be considered ancient by tech companies. Chloe frowned at that. It seemed like the possibility of me not finding a job had never occurred to her. After a moment, she said, Well, mooching is definitely not an option. A man has to have his own career. If it really comes to that, I'll just break up with him. I mean, with my connections, I can have my pick of guys. As soon as those words left her mouth, I realized how foolish I had been. I thought I was working hard for our future. But in Chloe's mind, I was completely replaceable. Perhaps all she ever wanted was a boyfriend who could provide emotional support. As for who that boyfriend was, that didn't matter at all. I took one last, long look at Chloe, then I turned and walked away. I had come here tonight specifically to pick her up. She'd said she was going out for drinks with her friends, and I was worried. I never expected to overhear such a heart-wrenching truth. For the first time, I truly examined our relationship. When Chloe and I first got together, I always believed our different backgrounds didn't matter. As long as I worked hard enough, was ambitious enough, I could close the gap one day. But now it seemed the old saying about marrying within your own class had a lot of truth to it. To me, my career was my livelihood, the foundation of my life and my standing in society. But to a pampered princess like her, who had never worked a day in her life, a job was just an accessory. She could destroy my future without a second thought or a hint of apology. All because she could effortlessly obtain more money than I could earn in years of hard work. When it came down to it, she and I were never equals. Maybe it was time for me to stop dreaming I could ever stand by her side, and just go back to the world where I belong. I quickly packed my things and moved out of Chloe's apartment. When Chloe realized I hadn't come to pick her up, she called me several times. I declined every call. Furious, she sent me a stream of voice messages on WhatsApp, all demanding to know what I was doing. I ignored them all. Right now, I needed to find a place to cool down. Otherwise, I was afraid that if I saw her, I'd lose control and do something I'd regret. Although I had moved into her luxury condo 6 months after we started dating, I had my own 3-bedroom place. But Chloe knew that address, and I didn't want her to find me, so I checked into a hotel for a few days. But being alone was torture. My mind was a mess. A heavy weight was crushing my chest. Desperately needed someone to talk to vent. After thinking it over, the only person who knew the whole story was Alex. So I called him up and asked him to go for a drink. When Alex heard me say that my girlfriend was the one who had snitched on me, he was stunned. His eyes went wide. You didn't keep the job switch a secret from her? I shook my head, the whiskey in my mouth tasting bitter. I didn't go out of my way to hide it, but I never told her either. We lived together, though. She probably went through my laptop and saw the documents, and that's how she knew I was preparing for the X Group interview. But what was the point? He asked, completely baffled. Her own boyfriend is working his ass off to get ahead, and she not only refuses to support him, but actively drags him down? I thought about what she'd said, that my job didn't even pay enough for a few of her handbags, and let out a self-deprecating laugh. Her family is so rich, she probably thinks it doesn't matter whether I have a job or not. If she sabotaged it, I'd have more time to spend with her. Alex clapped me on the shoulder sympathetically. Man, rich girls are a handful. It's a real shame you missed out on X Group. The new CEO they hired is a total amateur, not even half as good as you. Mr. Harrison has complained to me about him multiple times. Mr. Harrison was the chairman who had recommended me. As he spoke, his eyes suddenly lit up. Hey, wait a minute. Since we know it was your girlfriend who sent the tip, I think there might be a chance to get back in the game. My hand holding the glass froze. How do we fix this? Don't you worry about that for now. I'll start pulling some strings. I'll let you know how it goes, one way or another. Okay, man, I really owe you one. Hey, what are you talking about? Helping you is helping myself. Don't mention it. Come on, let's drink. In that moment, my heart, which had been shattered by Chloe, started to feel a little warmer. Who needs a girlfriend? When things get tough, it's your friends who have your back. I cut off all contact with Chloe. Because I didn't pick her up from the club and didn't reply to any of her messages, she blocked me. She'd pulled this move before when we fought, and every time I was the one who went crawling back to apologize. This time, I was done being her lapdog. She blocked me, so I blocked her right back. Next, I listed the 3-bedroom apartment she knew about for sale. At the same time, I rented a small 1-bedroom apartment. After a busy week, I finally had a new place to call my own. Meanwhile, Alex came through with some decent news. He said that X Group was internally discussing whether to replace the new CEO they had just hired. Mr. Harrison had once again put my resume in front of the top executives. Alex had cleared up the whole anonymous tip situation for me. He even went to great lengths to get stellar references from my former bosses, which carried a lot of weight. He said my chances of landing the offer were now maybe around 40 or 50%. It was the first piece of good news in a sea of crap lately. Even though he was being cautious, I had a strange feeling about it. I felt like my journey with X Group wasn't over yet. And this time, my gut was right. About 10 days later, Alex told me it was a done deal. Sure enough, 3 days after he told me that, someone from X Group's HR contacted me again. This time, since the word had come down from on high, all I had to do was have a chat with the group's CHO. With Chloe out of the picture, and not stirring up trouble, the process went smoothly this time. In less than a week, my offer letter was in my hands. I was ecstatic. I had to treat him to a big celebratory dinner. So I splurged and booked a private room at the most luxurious restaurant in the city. Over dinner, Alex filled me in on more of the details. It turned out that my reinstatement wasn't just because my name had been cleared. A bigger factor was that the guy they hired was completely incompetent. Apparently, he's some rich kid who got a fancy degree overseas to pad his resume and was shoehorned into the position. A few days after he started, he managed to piss off everyone under him. It got so bad that the entire subsidiary signed a joint letter to headquarters demanding his removal. Come to think of it, you really have this incompetent guy to thank for your comeback. After a good meal and plenty of wine, Alex and I were both a little buzzed. As we were leaving the private room, Alex wasn't paying attention and bumped into someone passing in the hallway. The person immediately yelled, "What the hell, are you blind? Didn't you see someone walking here?" "What's wrong?" A woman peeked out from behind the man. It was Chloe. The moment our eyes met, we both froze. Then a wave of pure anger washed over her face. "Mark! Where the hell have you been? I've been looking all over for you, and you just vanished. You lost your job, and I was worried sick about you, out here on your own. Turns out you've got enough cash to be living it up here. Just great." Alex, who had been about to apologize, shut his mouth. He shot me a look, asking who this was. I said flatly, "My ex-girlfriend." Chloe heard me, and her face turned ugly. "Mark, what ex-girlfriend? What are you talking about?" I hadn't seen Chloe in over half a month. Seeing her again, I felt surprisingly calm. Compared to her rage, my own emotions felt remarkably stable. Seeing her like this, I even found it a little funny. "Isn't it obvious what I mean? We broke up." Chloe's brow furrowed. "When did I say I wanted to break up with you? Mark, don't start trouble." "Who's the one starting trouble here?" Alex couldn't take it anymore and cut her off. "You're Mark's girlfriend, right? The one who sent an anonymous email to his company and a complaint to the company he was interviewing with." At his words, a flash of embarrassment and guilt crossed Chloe's face. She looked at me. You know?" I just stared at her without saying a word. "Is that why you're saying we should break up?" She bit her lip. I was just joking around. She was just trying to help me," another man's voice cut in at the same time as Chloe's. It was the man Alex had accidentally bumped into. He looked a year or two younger than me, wearing a loud floral shirt and white slacks. His hair was perfectly styled. He looked like some rich brat. Noticing me sizing him up, he tilted his chin up, moved to Chloe's side, and draped an arm around her shoulder. It was a deliberately provocative gesture. If this had been the old days, and some other guy had laid a hand on Chloe, I would have been on him in a second. But now, I just stood there and watched calmly. "What do you mean, she was helping you?" Alex sensed the malice in the man's tone. He and I both turned to look at Chloe. Chloe's face instantly turned bright red. She tugged on the man's sleeve. "Ryan, stop it!" But this guy, Ryan, ignored her. He kept his chin tilted up, looking at me. "You were dying to get into X Group, right?" Chloe knew I wanted to get into that company too, and that I had a competitor. She had someone find out that my competitor was you, so she found a way to take you out of the running. "Ryan," Chloe hissed. She couldn't meet my eyes and mumbled, "I'll explain this to you later. I don't agree to breaking up." Then she forcefully dragged Ryan away. As Chloe pulled him along, Ryan turned back to give me a thumbs down, his contempt clear as day. Alex and I stood there, watching the two of them bicker and disappear from view. For a long time, neither of us said anything. Then Alex finally blurted out, "Holy crap! Ryan, isn't that the idiot teammate I was just telling you about? Wait, he's about to get canned by X Group and he doesn't even see it coming?" I let out a cold laugh. He probably thinks he's got powerful people watching his back. After Alex and I parted ways, I went back to my apartment and looked up this Ryan guy on LinkedIn. His profile showed he had a master's in economics and management from a university in Australia. 30 years old. 2 stints of work experience overseas, both short, about a year or 2 each. The job titles were impressively inflated, though. To anyone in the know, it was obvious his resume was all smoke and mirrors. It looked like the typical playbook for a rich kid getting a degree overseas just to pad their resume. The next day, my ever-helpful friend Alex provided me with more information about Ryan. As a partner at a headhunting firm, he had a vast network of executive contacts. A few inquiries were all it took to dig up Ryan's backstory. He told me that Ryan had originally been a rich kid, but about a decade ago, his family ran into trouble. His father was arrested, and he and his mother fled the country. The family business went under. Once the dust settled, and they couldn't make it abroad anymore, they decided to come back to the country to try and strike it rich. I asked the head of HR at X Group this time. She told me that originally, the higher-ups thought Ryan's resume was too weak and didn't want him. But he came in with letters of recommendation from the CEOs of both Sinclair Holdings and Bedrock Industries, One of the shareholders at X Group used to work at Bedrock Industries, so through that convoluted connection, he managed to edge you out. Sinclair Holdings and Bedrock Industries. Weren't those Chloe's families and her uncle's companies? So the recommendation letters Ryan had were arranged by Chloe, I said. Looking at it now, it seems your ex-girlfriend sending that tip wasn't so simple, Alex added. The recommendation letters were one layer of insurance, and the complaint that knocked you out of the running was another. With that two-pronged attack, she was determined to make sure Ryan got the job. Alex sneered. Too bad he couldn't help but shoot himself in the foot. A fraud who got in through backroom deals with zero management talent but a real knack for pissing people off. He thought all he had to do was suck up to his bosses, but he didn't realize it's the people under you who can really make your life hell. So, since the higher-ups weren't keen on him to begin with, as soon as that joint email from his subordinates came through, they had the perfect excuse to fire him. Mark, you start tomorrow, right? I nodded. Alex grinned. Go show that idiot how it's done. When I arrived at the subsidiary's office, my new office hadn't been cleared out yet. Ryan was in the middle of arguing with the HR director. Fired? I don't accept this. What do you mean, not a good cultural fit? I'm an executive. I'm here to bring a fresh perspective to management. It should be the people under me adapting to me, not the other way around. If I just adapt to you guys and do things the old way, I'll just be assimilated, and your company will never change. The HR director maintained a polite smile. Your ideas are very interesting, but they're not a good fit for our company. Headquarters has already made the decision for you to step down. Please respect the company's decision. Well, I'm not signing any resignation papers. The HR director's tone remained calm. In that case, I can provide you with a termination letter and a notice that will be circulated throughout the industry. You? Ryan's face turned livid. I was watching the show from the side. He caught me in his peripheral vision and snapped impatiently. What are you looking at? Get out. I didn't move. He finally turned his head fully, and after recognizing me, froze for a couple of seconds. How is it? You. I smiled at the HR director behind him. The HR director opened the office door and gestured for Ryan to leave. Your keycard and facial recognition have been deleted from the system. This office no longer belongs to you. It now belongs to the newly appointed CEO. Mr. Mark Chen here is the one taking your place. Ryan's face cycled through shades of red and white. Just a couple of days ago, he was mocking me in that restaurant for losing the job. My presence here today was a hard slap across his face. I walked behind the desk and sat down, looking up at Ryan. Mr. Ryan, I heard you were a highly qualified professional educated overseas. No need to make a scene, is there? Ryan's chest heaved. He clearly didn't want to lose face in front of me. He shot me a dirty look before following the HR director out. During the lunch break, as the new CEO, I treated the mid-level managers from each department to a meal. I never would have guessed Ryan could be so petty. He actually followed us to the restaurant and cornered me outside. You did that on purpose, didn't you? You knew these people had a problem with me, so you took them to lunch. You wanted to laugh at me, right? I was speechless. In reality, the lunch was just a way to get to know everyone. No matter how much they disliked Ryan, they weren't about to start bad-mouthing him to me on my first day. Besides, I'm not that interested in laughing at you. And anyway, do we even know each other? We'd only met once. I really didn't understand where all his hostility towards me was coming from. To my surprise, hearing me say this, Ryan seemed to find a new weapon to attack me with. His confidence returned in a flash, and he tilted his chin up slightly. I've slept with your girl. You don't think that makes us acquainted? I looked at him, my face expressionless. Ryan probably thought he'd hit a nerve because his tone became even more smug. Chloe and I were first loves. Let me tell you the truth. Ever since I got back in the country, Chloe has been looking out for me. She knew I was struggling to find a job, so she pulled some strings to find out about this position, and even got me the recommendation letters. Technically, this job was mine from the start. Then you came along and tried to snatch it from me, and you didn't even tell Chloe. That's why she got pissed and sent that complaint to the higher-ups. I don't know what tricks you pulled to get me kicked out, but you just wait. Let's see how long you last in this position. That day we ran into each other at the restaurant. I had a feeling something was off between Ryan and Chloe. Now, hearing it all from his own mouth, it finally clicked. So that's how it was. I'd wondered why Chloe would go to such lengths to sabotage me just because I didn't tell her I was job hunting. Turns out there was this whole first love backstory. Even though I had already broken up with Chloe, hearing this now still made me sick to my stomach. What made me even angrier was what happened after work. Chloe was waiting for me at the entrance of my office building. Back at the restaurant, she'd said she would explain the whole complaint letter thing to me. But it had been days. She hadn't made any effort to talk to me about it. Instead, the moment she found out I had pushed out her first love, Ryan, she came running. How did I know she was here because of Ryan? Because my new job at X Group was confidential. Besides Ryan, there was no way she could have known where I was working now. And sure enough, the first words out of her mouth when she saw me were, "How could you take Ryan's job?" I had to laugh. It was infuriating. You came all this way to talk about that, and not to explain the complaint letter? When I brought that up, a flicker of guilt crossed Chloe's face, but it quickly transformed back into righteous indignation. Well, why didn't you tell me you were planning to switch jobs? It's a huge deal. If I had known you were also going for a position at X Group, I wouldn't have asked people to recommend Ryan. My dad and my uncle both wrote letters of recommendation. It would have looked bad if he didn't get the job, right? The more she talked, the more she convinced herself that her reasoning was sound, and her voice grew louder. When you get right down to it, this is your fault. There are so many jobs out there. Why did you have to target the same one as Ryan? Mark, I know you're upset about the complaint letter, but you're talented. You can find a good job on your own. Why do you have to make things difficult for Ryan? So what you're saying is, Ryan isn't talented? Chloe was at a loss for words. I continued with a cold laugh. And that right there is the real reason I got the X Group offer back. Coming to me is useless. You'd be better off spending your money to enroll your first love in some executive training program. Let him study for a few years before he comes out and tries to conquer the world. Chloe was furious. So you're determined to fight Ryan over this, is that it? Mark, if you keep this up, I'll really break up with you. You know that. We already broke up. I cut her off before she could say another word. From the moment I heard you and your friends laughing, saying you were going to teach me a lesson, saying my job paid too little for too much work, belittling me until I was worthless. After saying that, I didn't want to look at her for another second. Chloe stood there, stunned for a moment, before grabbing my arm, her words tumbling out in a rush. I can explain! What I said that day, I didn't mean it. I was just trying to look good in front of my friends. You know, their boyfriends are all from our circle, but your family is so ordinary. I shook her hand off. Sorry, but I'm not interested in being your dog anymore. Go find some man who can afford your handbags to train. I'm just a nobody. I'm not good enough for a princess like you who burns through money. Her face instantly went deathly pale. Maybe my words were too blunt and hit Chloe where it hurt. She didn't have the nerve to show her face around me again. Ryan, on the other hand, somehow got my contact information. He tried every which way to add me on WhatsApp. He would often send me taunting messages. Sometimes he would send intimate photos of himself and Chloe. It seemed like he thought the only way to get revenge for me taking his job was to rub in the fact that he'd cuckolded me. Unfortunately for him, I was long over Chloe and never responded to his provocations. Seeing that I wasn't taking the bait, Ryan actually sent me a short video of him and Chloe fooling around when they were teenagers. The angle was clever. He never showed his own face, but Chloe was in clear view. He then bragged to me on WhatsApp. I was her first. Job, woman, you're only fit to pick up my scraps. I just thought, what a complete idiot. Did he really think that after dating Chloe for 5 or 6 years, I wouldn't have her parents' contact information? Before he could delete it, I quickly took a screenshot and saved the video. Then I turned around and sent it to Chloe's father, the CEO of Sinclair Holdings. I added a message. Mr. Sinclair, even though your daughter and I didn't part on the best of terms, I'd hate to see her end up with a scumbag. A long time later, Chloe's father replied, "Okay, I understand." Then he immediately deleted me. I just smiled. If he wasn't afraid of me laughing at him, why bother deleting me? Sure enough, a week later, the financial news reported that the head of Sinclair Holdings had been rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment after a sudden spike in blood pressure. His eldest son was temporarily taking over as CEO of the group. Half a month later, news broke of a major shift in Sinclair Holdings' shareholding. 40% of the 60% of shares held by Mr. Sinclair were transferred to his son, the new CEO, and along with that came the news of Chloe's impending marriage. Alex moved in executive circles, so he heard the news before I did. "Your ex-girlfriend is marrying that Ryan guy," he told me. I wasn't surprised. When I was with Chloe, I met her father twice. I could tell right away that he was the very traditional, patriarchal type. Man works, woman stays home. To put it bluntly, he was sexist. The only reason Chloe had a good life was because her family was wealthy, so it wasn't immediately obvious. But the fact that she majored in art in college and was never asked to join the family business after graduation told you everything you needed to know. Neither her father nor her brother ever considered her one of their own. She was always going to be married off, sooner or later. Ryan had a private video of Chloe. Given her father's traditional mindset, to avoid a scandal, he would just marry her off to Ryan to shut him up. That way, if anything ever did leak, it could be explained away as something between a husband and wife. As for whether his daughter would be happy marrying a broke, arrogant, rich kid from a fallen family, that was clearly not part of his consideration. Alex was initially furious on my behalf, but after I explained it all, he calmed down. "You're sure those two are going to be miserable together?" I nodded. Having been with Chloe for so long, I knew her personality inside and out. At her core, she's attracted to power and success. My background was nothing compared to hers, but I went to a top-tier university, and my major was one of the best in the school. I was consistently in the top 10 of my class. I was then accepted into my university's graduate program, spent a year abroad on a full scholarship, and graduated with a dual master's degree. It was a completely different world from her, who got into a foreign university by her family just throwing money at it. When we first got together, she was the one who pursued me. When she confessed her feelings, she said her ideal man was smart, ambitious, and capable. But we were together for too long. She started to see me as ordinary. From an outsider's perspective, for a kid from a small town with no connections to get to where I am today, is actually pretty damn impressive. I'm not trying to brag, but if she got tired of someone like me, she definitely wouldn't want to marry a loser like Ryan, who needed her to get him a job. I could only imagine that over the past few weeks, being forced by her father and brother to marry Ryan, She must have been on the verge of a complete breakdown. I was right. After the news of the Sinclair Holdings CEO marrying off his daughter broke, Chloe and Ryan's backgrounds were dug up and laid bare. Although the media tried to spin it as a fairy tale story of childhood sweethearts finally getting their happy ending, they couldn't stop some paparazzi from capturing photos of the two of them arguing in the street. Suddenly, rumors of the engagement being off were everywhere. Then, just as quickly, they vanished without a trace. A couple of days later, Chloe showed up looking for me again, her cheek red and swollen. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears. "Mark, take me away. Get me out of here. I don't want to marry Ryan. He sent that private video of me to my dad to force this marriage. I'm going crazy." That's when I realized Chloe thought Ryan was the one who sent the video to her father. Her father had apparently flown into a rage, immediately froze all her credit cards, and confiscated all her properties. When a confused Chloe went home, she was met with 2 hard slaps from her father and the explicit video. Before she could even process what was happening, she was given her orders from her father and brother. Marry Ryan as soon as possible, and move to Australia with him. Ryan was also called to the house, but Ryan was much quicker on the uptake than Chloe. As soon as he realized I had exposed everything, he immediately started negotiating with her father. Marriage was fine, and he could guarantee the video wouldn't leak, but he had to be given a senior position at Sinclair Holdings. After a round of bargaining, her father was so enraged he ended up in the hospital. Chloe then received 2 slaps from her brother. That was followed by the news of the share transfer. Sinclair Holdings was now completely out of Chloe's hands. All the real power was with her brother. Ryan was indeed given a position in the company as a VP of Human Resources. It was a senior title, sure, but with a proper president of HR above him, his VP title was in name only. So Ryan started fighting with Chloe. He argued that as the future son-in-law of the chairman, how could he be stuck in a vice president role? Chloe, having been forced into this marriage, finally saw her true place in the family. How could she be foolish enough to fight for Ryan again? Her dad might have tolerated her getting a recommendation letter for Ryan once, but her married brother, with a child of his own, had no intention of spoiling his little sister. And so, all of Chloe's long-suppressed frustrations finally erupted. She got into a heated argument with Ryan in public, pushing and shoving him. Someone with a camera caught it all, and it became a hot news story. After the story blew up, Chloe tried to use it as an excuse to call off the engagement. But Ryan pulled out their old video and threatened her. "I already have a green card. Worst case, I just leave the country. But you still have to live in this social circle. If you dare call this off, I'll ruin your reputation in this country. I'll let every man in the world enjoy the sight of your pretty little body." Chloe had never been threatened or humiliated like this in her entire life. She couldn't help but slap Ryan across the face. Unfortunately, Ryan was a complete piece of trash who had no problem hitting a woman. The second Chloe's hand left his face, he grabbed her by the hair and slapped her right back, shouting, "You're a cast-off from the Sinclair family. You should be grateful I'm even willing to take you. When I first came back, I thought you might be useful, but now I see I was blind. You're crying? I'm the one who should be crying, being shackled to your family with no way out." Chloe cried that she would have her dad teach him a lesson. But just as Ryan said, her dad was recovering in a private hospital and refused to see her. And her brother's words were identical to Ryan's. "Who told you to sleep with a guy like Ryan? If you don't marry him and he goes crazy, he'll tarnish the Sinclair family's name. You may not care about your reputation, but I care about mine. Marry Ryan quietly, and I'll still give you your share of the domestic properties. Otherwise, even though you're my sister, once you're married, you're no longer part of this family. I wouldn't have to give you a single penny." Her brother's coldness made Chloe break down in tears. Everyone in their circle knew she had been abandoned by her family. Her so-called socialite friends all avoided her. And so, finally, she remembered me. She stood in front of me, cursing. Ryan. I was so wrong, Mark. Ryan is a monster. He has no ability of his own, but he blames me for not getting him a better future. I just found out he has a gambling problem, that he was deep in debt overseas and had to come back. My dad and my brother knew he was a walking disaster, and they're still pushing me into this fire. If I marry him, I'll die. Please, take me away. I'd rather marry you than him." In that moment, where was the arrogant, confident Chloe I once knew? She ignored the stares of the people around us, crying and begging me. In the past, when I was deeply in love with her, I would have rushed to comfort her. But now, seeing her like this, I couldn't help it. I laughed out loud. "You deserve it." Her whole body went rigid. She looked up at me in disbelief. "What did you say?" I looked down at her, enunciating each word. I said, "You deserve it. Isn't this all your own doing? In your eyes, what kind of sucker do you take me for? Someone who would happily marry you after you stabbed me in the back? Or is marrying you supposed to be some incredible prize?" Chloe's face went white. Don't you love me anymore?" "Love?" I scoffed. "Don't make me laugh. You don't even deserve to say that word." I took a deep breath. "Chloe, have you ever stopped to think how hard it is for a guy like me, with no background, to fight my way to where I am today? And the funny thing is, just a month ago, you were here questioning me about why I took Ryan's job. When you were questioning me, did you ever stop to think that because of you, I lost that offer and my original job? Did you ever think about how I was supposed to live? But you still got into X Group in the end." "That's because I have a reliable friend who worked his ass off to turn the tide for me." I cut her off, my voice sharp. "If it weren't for him, I'd still be an unemployed wreck right now. A long gap in my resume would have wiped out the last 5 years of my career. The market is so competitive. I might have had to leave this city altogether. Do you have any idea what those 2 letters you wrote could have destroyed? You were the girlfriend I trusted most, the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. How could you have the nerve to sit with me and figure it out, to guide me into blaming my old boss? Chloe, when you looked at me then, were you dying of laughter inside, just like when you were bragging to your friends? Was I just a big idiot to you?" Chloe fell silent, lowering her head to wipe away her tears, sobbing uncontrollably. Alex was supposed to meet me for dinner. Since Chloe was blocking my way, he came looking for me. Seeing her pathetic act, I suddenly felt bored. I turned to Alex as he walked over. "You see this? She still thinks Ryan sent that video to her dad." Alex, who knew the whole story, raised an eyebrow. Chloe, who had been crying, instantly looked up. "What?" I deliberately mimicked the condescending tone she had used. I was at the club that night, pointing at her and laughing to Alex. "This idiot!" To this day, she still doesn't know that Ryan sent the video to me first to show off. And then I was the one who sent it to her dad. And she wants me to help her escape her wedding. Tell me, do all ex-girlfriends have this much nerve? Alex laughed too. I don't know. Maybe they just have a really high opinion of themselves. As we both laughed at her, Chloe fled in humiliation. After that, she never appeared before me again. Later, I saw in the news that Chloe did end up marrying Ryan. They moved to Australia shortly after the wedding. It was the well-connected Alex who told me that Chloe had been effectively exiled by her family. They gave her a sum of money and sent the couple on their way. 2 years later, I heard about Chloe again in the news. The headline read, "Sinclair Holdings heiress files for divorce, citing domestic abuse." That's when I learned that Ryan had been arrested for hitting Chloe, and she wanted to divorce him and return to the country, but it seemed her family wasn't supportive. I glanced at it for a moment, then closed the news tab. These past few years, my life has been good. I've steadily climbed the ladder and even received equity in the company. Chloe and the pain she once caused me are like a distant cloud. Seeing news about her is like seeing a stranger. But sometimes, I'm grateful to her, because she made me understand something. The career you build for yourself is the only thing that will never betray you.